Hello, everyone, and welcome to Interview with Inspirations and Skills Rediscovery Initiative. I'm joined here today by Dr. Dwarka Prasad Unyal, who is the Pro Vice Chancellor at RV University, Bengaluru. So, thank you so much for joining us here today. And if you could just tell our audience about who you are and what you do.
Thank you for having me here, Skills team. It's a pleasure. As you've said, I am currently the Pro Vice Chancellor of a new age liberal arts university being set up in Bengaluru called Rashtriya Vidyalaya University, or RV University. It's more famous for RV College of Engineering and a lot of other colleges. There are almost 20 odd colleges being run from the RV Trust, which is one of the oldest trusts in Karnataka with a legacy of 80 years. What we're doing here is setting up various different disciplines. So we are doing a School of Liberal Arts and Sciences. We are doing a School of Design. We're doing a School of Economics and Finance. Next year, we're going to start a School of Computer Science, a School of Law, and then later on, we would move to Public Policy, Media, and Communication. So this is how the university will unfold over a period of time. These are initial days. We are in a startup mode, so we are all excited, and let's see. We're just hoping that this pandemic kind of dies down,
Yes, so
that we can do a lot more. Yes.
So you have a rich and illustrious history as an educator, and you were also the Dean and Flame Pune. So if you could tell us about your journey from the beginning of your career and how you molded it to become the trainer and the educator you are today.
Yeah, interesting question. It all started. So I didn't start my career as an academic. I started my career while I was still in college. I was doing copywriting. I was into creative writings. I was into theater. I was into radio. And as I moved to my corporate life, I started working in the space of retailing and initially in the e-commerce domain and so on and so forth. But I started my academic journey 21 years ago with MICA in Ahmedabad. Okay. So Mudra Institute of Communication is one of the top-notch media communication and branding school in the world. And I started my research career with MICA under a professor called Piyush Kumar Sinha and under the guidance of my then director, Professor Anil Kulkarni. So these were the two initial people who were instrumental in advising me, inspiring me to move to academics. However, I always had a family background in academics. So my sisters are professors, my brother-in-laws are professors. So we are and now my wife is also an educator. So, we have a family in education. So it came kind of naturally for us to move into this direction. And I always enjoyed reading, writing, talking, explaining. So it initially became very, very interesting dimension for me. Back then it was easy. If somebody is paying me for reading books and writing, I think that's an easy decision, which I loved. I loved spending time doing research, finding out new things about understanding consumers, meeting new people, understanding retail formats. So I kind of started my academic journey about understanding the domain. So if you don't understand the domain, of course, you cannot go out and write about it or research about it or forget about teaching.
Yes.
So I think that's how it started in MICA. And I developed that into slowly teaching few courses. I was encouraged by my second director, late Professor Atul Tandon, into getting into active teaching. So I was fortunate that at a very young age in my life, I started teaching and I got some great experiences there. And then in 2004, I got an opportunity to work under legendary institution builder, late Dr. M.L. Srikanth, who was the honorary dean of SP Jain Institute of Management and Research, which is a top 5 business school in the country.
Yes.
And he molded me, moved me a lot more into a serious academic, while MICA was initially a very exciting place for me to experiment and do interesting things. But I think Dr. Srikanth molded me into move into serious academia. And then also gave me an opportunity at a very young age in my life in 2004 to be part of the founding team to help them set up a Dubai campus for SP Jain.
Okay.
So under the leadership of Mr. Nitish Jain, we were a team of very young scholars and educators who then created SP Jain Dubai, which ended up later on becoming an FT 100 school called SP Jain Global, which has got campuses today in Singapore and Sydney and Mumbai and Dubai, of course, which is the initial. So that thing gave me an exposure towards creating new institutions, working from ground up. Also allowed me to understand and learn academic administration. So while MICA taught me to become a researcher and a teacher, SP Jain honed my teaching skills. I learned case method at SP Jain, and then also gave me an opportunity to develop academic administration, something which I do now for my living. I teach much less than I would have wanted. And from there, I went back to MICA to finish my doctoral thesis and also to finish my book on retailing with Dr. Sinha. And 2008, I got an opportunity to work with a very, very interesting, legendary person called Professor S. Ramkumar. So you see, every time I had somebody to inspire me, somebody to mentor me, somebody to help me move to a next orbit.
Yes.
And Professor S. Ramkumar is a nuclear physicist. He runs amazing, interesting consulting organization called The Last Resort. He's an author, he's an angler. He's an alum of IIM Ahmedabad and is a legendary teacher. So he's been teaching for 30 years, brand management. So he gave me an opportunity to go to Himachal to become one of the youngest deans in the country at that point of time, to set up a new business school being created by a university called Chitkara University in Chandigarh. And they were creating a new university in Himachal, and they gave me a complete canvas, blank canvas, to create a business school from scratch. So while I had my experiences in some of the top business schools in the country, like MICA and SP Jain, but I was working under legendary people. But here I was the dean, very, very young. And at that time, I was 32, and gave me that opportunity to create a complete new business school from scratch. So that was a phenomenal experience, which I enjoyed doing it with Professor Ramkumar. And while I was still doing the Chitkara thing, I got introduced to somebody called Professor C. Rajkumar. Professor C. Rajkumar was a professor at Hong Kong, City University, Hong Kong. And he was returning to India to work with Mr. Naveen Jindal of Jindal Steel and Power Limited to set up a completely global new university in Delhi NCR near Sonipat called Jindal Global University. And he then invited me to be part of the founding team of OP Jindal Global University. So from 2009 to 2012, for almost 2013, for 4 years, I was there, helped them create Jindal Global Business School and helped them grow the university from 10 faculty members, 100 students to today. Now, I'm very proud that they are into QS rankings. They are institutions of eminence. They have got now 10 schools, 8,000 students and 800 faculty members. So Professor C. Rajkumar has done a phenomenal work. So that gave me an opportunity to work in a university environment. So while I had worked so much into business schools, traditional business schools in India and abroad, But this was a multi-faculty. I was working with lawyers, I was working with public policy people, I was working with international affairs experts, and of course, my business domain was very much there. In 2013, I got an opportunity to go back to my home state of Uttarakhand to be part of the founding team of the IIM, which Government of India was proposing to make and create there in a small town near Jim Corbett National Park called Kashipur. People had not heard about it. I'm sure you would not have heard about it, this particular place. It's very, very small. But we were creating a new IIM for Uttarakhand there. So between 2013 to 2018, for 5 years, I was very much part of the founding team to set up the new IIM, set up the curriculum, faculty, placements, international collaborations, executive education. And later on, I went to Dehradun to create a new campus for them, the satellite campus for executive education, created new programs. We forayed into digital, what we call EdTech today, which is very hot. We were doing that way back in 2017 and 2016 itself. 5 years ago, we had partnered with a couple of EdTech platforms and we got into EdTech at that time. And today, teaching, talking on Zoom is natural because of the pandemic. At that point of time, we were teaching people sitting across thousands of miles using a digital platform by a futuristic company called Talent Edge. So that today you have brilliant players like Upgrad, Talent Edge, Eruditus, Unacademy, of course, and others. And in between, I had a short stint at the IAS Academy, Mussoorie, which trains India's civil servants, and had a great time learning, understanding the public policy domain, working with the IAS officers and other officers of central services. It was a great experience for me at Mussoorie. 2018, I took a very different jump in my life and career. Tough as well, because I was leaving my hometown of Dehradun. I was leaving my parents behind. And I joined Flame as Dean of Business. And the whole idea was that I wanted to understand the liberal education, and Flame being the pioneer in liberal education in the country. They were the first liberal arts university in the country, much before anybody else even heard of liberal arts. And it's a phenomenal place being created by the founders, Mr. Naimesh Shah and Mr. Vallabh Bhansali, and the founding president, Dr. Indra Parekh. So I was fortunate to also work with its first vice chancellor, Dr. Devi Singh, whom I knew, of course, from his IIM Lucknow days. And because we were all part of the business school and the IIM community, we knew each other well. And then later on with Dr. Dishan Kamdar, who was the founding guy of, like me, was the founding guy of ISB. So both of us came from creating new institutions. And now, as early as March, I had joined the RV University after my tenure as Dean ended at Flame University to join my earlier colleague from Jindal University, Professor YSR Murthy. Professor Murthy was the founding professor and later registrar of OP Jindal University. So we had worked together. So he's the founding vice chancellor of RV University in Bengaluru. And he reached out to me and said, let's create some magic together again. So here I am taking a leap of faith once again into a startup mode, smaller teams, and taking up this assignment into creating new things. So I'm kind of an educational entrepreneur in that particular sense. But in between, I've taught close to around 55 odd business schools as full-time faculty, as visiting faculty, as guest faculty, close to around 10,000 odd students. So this lovely academic journey of 21 years has been very, very enriching. So that's how it is. That's my 21 years in a nutshell.
Thank you so much. So that was quite a journey to go through with you. And you've been the co-founder and the founder of so many institutes in your journey of 21 years. But could you tell us about some of the challenges or the major challenges that you faced in your journey, while going through these various institutes and setting them up?
See, the logistical challenges are always there. Initially you will not have enough money, you will not have enough people, you will not have people don't know you. So one of the biggest challenges initially is how do you, as a startup, get into people's mind, right? How do you create and positioning in people's mind who you are? For example, when we went to set up SPGen in Dubai, people in Dubai were still using fax machines in 2004. And India has completely leapfrogged that technology in our times. And so when we went out to, engage with industry in Dubai, and Dubai has a very different kind of economic model, unlike India. So they're really very, very much into retail and very much into luxury and lifestyle and others. So the companies are also very different there. And nobody knew in Dubai in that sense. SPGen is a very, very strong brand name in India as a business school. But in Dubai, even business education in 2004 was unheard of, because people who could afford would go to America or Canada to study, or Indians will send back their children back to India. And that's a huge expat population, you would understand.
Yes.
You have in Dubai. So creating a business school for a larger population was difficult, and people did not even know us, So it was tough so initial challenges is to first get a meeting. I remember meeting one CEO. It took us 3 months to get the first meeting. After that, the floodgates opened, because, they spoke to each other and they said, yeah, there is a new school we should support, and all that stuff had to happen. But initially that's there. Secondly, how do you excite students to take a risk with you? Today, people are trying very hard with huge GMAT scores to get into SPGen Dubai. Bombay never had a problem because it was established business school. And MICA again was a very established business school. So we didn't have problems in getting students. Same with Jindal. When we started Jindal, how to get good students? Because a university is not about building. It's not about infrastructure. It's all about how good as students you can attract them to. And when you have nothing to show, your bare minimum faculty, you have some legacy, but nobody understands that. You don't have a placement record. So what happens is these are really big challenges. So how do you attract good talent? Academic institutions work only for two people. Everything else, including people like me today, can be dispensed of. They work on good quality student and a good quality teacher or a professor.
Yes, sir.
Now, how do you attract these guys? How do you attract it? Money doesn't work for these guys. They're very different. How do you attract a good student saying that take a risk with me? Like when Flame started, liberal arts was not known, or when we started SPGen Dubai, to take a risk, and students need to go to Dubai from India. Big risk, coming all the way there. We don't know the markets, whether they will get jobs or not, who will come, who will teach, and all that stuff. And same with Jindal. We were setting up a global university in a place called Sonipat nobody had heard of. Yes. You want to create global things in Bengaluru, yes, people will still think about it, or Hyderabad or a Bombay, for example. But Sonipat was a very small town close to Delhi, and nobody had heard about it. So how do you create and excite people, a vision, so that they will come and join you? And I was setting up my global business school there in Sonipat. I had faculty coming from IIM Ahmedabad. I hired from the PhD students from some of the IIMs. I had faculty from rest of the world, from Singapore, from US, from Canada. But attracting them, coming all the way from wherever they were in the world to a small town called Sonipat was a challenge. Same goes with Kashipur, which was even back in the beyond, people have not even heard of. Sonipat people knew because it's close to Delhi. Kashipur was close to Jim Corbett National Park. The tiger is more known than the IIM,
Yes, sir.
So it's very tough. So the challenges are how to attract good talent, both students as well as faculty. How to keep them motivated. Because if a great talented faculty comes in, the students are not challenging enough. They're not pushing the faculty. Faculty feels disheartened.
Yes.
And third, the most important ecosystem in the triangle, you have the industry. How to engage with them, how to bring them on board, how to co-create and co-deliver programs, how to ensure that they come back for internships, how do they come back for placements, for example. So I think the building part of it, the infrastructure part of it, of course, has its own challenges. Sometimes the classrooms are not ready. Sometimes guest house is not ready. So I've hosted faculty in my homes in Dubai, in Ahmedabad, in Sonipat, in Chandigarh, wherever, because we either ran into some hotel problems or we ran into, sometimes your peon has not come, the classrooms are not clean. And I had no shame in going and cleaning the classroom, because for me as an administrator, it was very important that classes start on time.
Yes.
I've driven down faculty to hundreds of kilometers to ensure that they reach in classes in time. So these are of course part of the larger startup challenges as a startup person you deal with. But most important challenge is building the brand, exciting your three most stakeholders: industry, later, but first students, and then faculty. Faculty is central to any institution. If you don't have good faculty, you can have greatest of the buildings, but the university won't become good.
Yes.
So these are challenges. And then managing student expectation, because if they come on your vision, they would want us to deliver, and many times, non-academic things take precedence. The food is not good, for example. The mess is not working fine. There are not enough coffee shops around. So in Jindal, I actually created a coffee shop with my students. We ran an enterprise called Cafe Grooveyard, and we funded it. And we actually created a coffee shop on campus, because the nearest coffee shop, which is Barista in Sonipat, was almost 20 kilometers way back in 2009. So we created a coffee shop on campus. So those are tough challenges. Yeah. Attracting faculty and getting good students are the two biggest challenges. Yes.
So you're an authority on liberal arts, and you've gone through so many challenges to establish it. So could you tell us a little about the current scenario of liberal arts in the country, and how COVID has affected it, or how it's metamorphosized in the current scenario?
Okay. First clarification, I'm not an authority. I am a student of this education system, of understanding education as a whole. So the whole philosophy of it, and we should not call it liberal arts, we should call it liberal education as a whole philosophy. The whole philosophy is that education is not limited to functional boundaries, because problems in real life are not. Now, yes, if you face a technical problem or any other business problem in your business, this is your platform. Can you say that this is a marketing problem, finance problem, psychology problem, history problem? They are problems. They might have certain connotations coming from certain areas. So unless you don't understand the foundational disciplines, your ability to make interconnections in the real world is limited. That's why you see a lot of engineering education in India is moving towards giving them a lot more other aspects as well, soft skills, understanding history, even music is kind of in IITs. I think they're bringing a lot more liberal education elements, because they realize that technical education can be lopsided in certain cases. Same goes with humanities and social sciences education. You cannot have an education which is not contextualized in the current environment. You can teach somebody history, you can teach somebody philosophy, but what is the relevance of that education in the modern context? Where will they get jobs from? How do you link new technologies and digital environments so that they are well versed with what's happening around and probably make a living out of it? So a whole idea of liberal education actually in India stems from the Western liberal education, liberal arts colleges, which is like 200-300-year-old. Wellesley and Amherst and Vassar and Brown and few others are there, which started this whole broad-based making a good citizen holistic student formula.
Yes.
But technically, if you really look at it, pre-British era, this is what our Gurukul were all about. So they had actually borrowed from us. Our Gurukul education was all about whole education. It was all about learning the fundamentals and the foundations of the sciences. So it was not, people were in the older domain, people were not just learning only sciences or commerce or humanities. They were learning everything. They were learning languages, they were learning literature, they were learning mathematics, physics, they were learning biology in that whatever context it was, even philosophy. And they were also taught skills in the Gurukul.
Yes.
Right. So once your foundation is built, then you were taught skills, because then your skill will lead you to become a merchant banker. This will lead you to become a warrior. Your skill will lead you to become an agriculturist. Your skill will make you a painter, for example. Right? Wherever your interest lies in that, music, for example, dance, for example. So once your foundation education is over in these fundamental subjects, in sciences, physical, natural, and social sciences, humanities. So liberal education believes that everybody should learn everything initially.
Yes.
And then slowly move towards an area of specialization where you can go. So go a lot deeper into your domain area. Yet at the same time, you should have life skills. You should have enough skill-oriented understanding of the context, so that either you start your own enterprise or you become employable in a larger context, so that you can make use of the education you've gone through, and so that you solve larger problems. Today, for example, pandemic. Do you think it's a virus problem?
So it can be construed as a lot of problems, I think.
It is 1/10 of a virus problem. Everything else is linked with politics, with economics, with society as a whole, psychology of people, behavior change. Now, how would you tell people that the simplest thing you were supposed to do was not to buy 80,000 rupee remdesivir, which is sold in the black, but follow the protocol? So at one end, of course, there is a medical catastrophe, which we are seeing because of multiple reasons. No nation was ready for this. Yet at the same time, look at the simple behavior change was needed for people to follow social distancing, to mask up. Now so if you don't understand a problem in that sense, your ability to critically and objectively look at certain problems, like for example, today, the vaccinization today is not a medical problem. It is a logistical problem today.
Yes.
So for that, you need to understand economics of it. You need to understand propensity of people. People are saying vaccine should be free, but they are the same people who are lining up, buying oxygen cylinders for their loved ones because they have to, for so many. So the problem is, as one end, there are certain set of people who are saying they don't understand the enormity of the situation, right? Or even if they do, they're not being able to link it up. So sometimes, you have these bigger, larger problems which are coming in. Biases, for example, where do we get into? Understand economics and economic biases and behavioral biases. You won't be able to understand why these things are happening the way they are. All right. So I think liberal education as a philosophy, every education should be liberal education. Yes. It shouldn't be left to liberal arts colleges or liberal education colleges to saying that, we are offering. Every college institution should be broad-based enough in the undergraduate level and the school and the undergraduate level to ensure that everybody goes through the fundamentals and the foundations, and then go deeper into the domain. So liberal education in India has become a fad in last 10, 15 years. Every social science college has started rebranding themselves into a liberal arts program or liberal education program, but that's not how it is. Its DNA is very different. It believes in student residency. It believes in very close connections between students and teachers. Guru Shishya Parampara, for example, goes back to the older times. It believes in the fact that you need to be trained in multiple domains before you make choices into one particular domain. So this is how ideally every education in India should be imparted. And the elements of that could be brought in. Even if medical education also, yes. Public health, for example, comes much later in medical education. Ideally, if they are being trained into managing these pandemics and public health and others, and I'm sure the doctors are more sensitive towards it. They become too narrow sometimes.
Yes.
Today, India does not need specialists to manage COVID situation. India needs specialists, but they need to treat the patient, not the disease, which means they need to understand the whole problem which somebody is going through rather than treating one narrow aspect of it. So all of this are linked. Our education system was suitable for 20th century. In 21st century, we need to have merging of skills, merging of domains, merging of diverse ideas. And a liberal education institution should be a platform where all kinds of people, it's like a sea where all rivers converge. All kinds of people should come in. So we are creating a platform. Flame and few others have already done it. At RV, we are also creating areas where theater will come, dance will come, music will come, physicists will come, mathematicians will come, business people will come, economists will come, psychologists will come, sociologists will come, Indologists will come, literature people will come, writer, artists. All of that should be congregating and creating a very beautiful ecosystem where we learn from each other and we make the best of the learning environment we have been able to create for the students, so that unko ye nahi sochna pade ki math sirf maths padhta. A maths person can also pick up a minor in dance and or music, for example.
Yes.
And so the whole left brain, right brain theory needs to be smashed to the earth and buried, because there's nothing like this happens. All of us got one brain, and it has got tremendous ability to pick up multiple levels. Like, I have so many interests than just being a business school professor or a administrator.
Yes, sir.
I'm interested in theater. I'm interested in poetry. I'm a poet. I do advertising. I work with my students to write scripts for the films. I am into entrepreneurship. I work very closely with startups. I work in developmental sector, social sector, which means no one thing should be defining you.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Right? So this is where the liberal education tells you that, you shouldn't be defined by one narrow thing.
I'm glad you brought this up, sir, because it segues very well into my next question. Because how do you see the new education policy for India? Because the new education policy, as per the guidelines, has been focusing more and more on skills and the learning of skills at an early age, and not just dividing it into science, arts, and commerce. So, what are your thoughts on the education policy?
New education policy is a good intent document.
Yes.
So government has taken I was also part of some of the deliberations for the Vice Chancellor's meet 1.5 years back before it was launched. It's a good intent document. But at the same time, the execution and the way fine print has to come out needs to be seen. That is one. Second, it has made the education very modular, which means if you spend 1 year in college, you get a certificate and choice-based credits and so on and so forth, credit banks and others. So in intent, it's fine. But how do various universities, various colleges work together to implement it needs to be seen. One. Secondly, I think bringing skills earlier is a good step. I feel that skills should come up as early as in K-12. Students should be, apart from learning the subjects they're learning, they should be digitally literate. They should be financially literate. They should pick up skills while they're still in schools, and then hone them as they move to the colleges and probably make a career out of it. Today, sometimes a 14-year-old is more employable in the larger world probably than a 24-year-old, because they might possess a certain skill which the industry would want. And if that comes earlier, because our school system essentially not trains you to learn the subject. School system trains you to pass an exam with flying colors. And once the exam is over, you just forget about it. And then you wait for another 4 years of college, do the same thing, and then the cycle repeats. School education should be a lot more open and less rigid and more inspirational. Today, school education is not inspiring. It is a drudgery. Okay. And that's why when this whole pandemic hit, schools moved from an offline teaching to an online teaching, only to realize that nobody is interested.
Yes.
Because you just can't create a classroom environment to engage. And your pedagogy also needed a very different mindset in a digital environment than you do that in a physical environment. So I think skills is a good idea. I'm a big votary of skills, not at the expense of development of your other mental faculty. So you might be very skillful in certain areas, but then you realize that you're not articulate enough, or you can't communicate enough, or you don't have social skills to manage life in general. So as I see it, I think the education needs to be balanced, and there is a triangle which I feel needs to be looked at. I think it's being proposed in Dr. Shrikant Datar's book. He's the now Dean of Harvard Business School and a big design thinker. And he has proposed very beautifully a triangle for education. And it is called the knowing, doing, and being triangle. So while knowing was all about knowledge, understanding subjects and increasing your broad understanding of various domains, doing is where you're actually practicing what you're being taught, which is skills come in. How do you practice it? How do you do it unless you don't have skills to do it? But the third element is also very, very critical, which is not very emphasized either at K-12 or a university education, is about managing self, managing failure, managing success, managing money, managing challenges, managing people, managing expectations. Managing self, being part of it is also very, very critical today. And I feel that education institutions from school level itself need to start looking at this triangle. They need to balance this triangle. Right now, it's very lopsided towards knowing. Colleges have to start incubators. Colleges have to start and fund students to create new companies, let them fail, to let them do part of it, not just, make them hostage to a classroom.
Yes.
They need to explore and make students aspire and get inspired to see what's beyond classroom. They should wait. Yes, we've learned great. It was a great class, but then let's practice it. Let's do something. What can we do about it? And then, of course, when success and failures, all these things come, how do you manage it? How do you manage your life? I think we just, as families, people, parents, schools, teachers, we fail to inculcate that in our young minds about the awareness about the worldly things which cannot be graded, beyond grading. How do you train people or probably give them an ecosystem so that they become a lot more well-versed with their own life? I think life management, life skills are also very, very critical.
Yes,
and new education policy does talk about integrating some of it. And it's a very good thought in that direction, yes.
So what suggestions would you have to the new students who are probably graduating this year or already graduated? So what suggestions would you have for them to, face the employability challenges that is, challenging a lot of the youths in the country?
Easier said than done. So no global gyan on this. First and foremost, accept that these are very tough times first. But don't get into despair that these are tough times. Okay, these are unprecedented times in our lives. I'm 45. I've never seen something like this in my life, right? The last 1.5 years, 2 years, been very tough as an educator, as a college administrator, as people, and so on and so forth. So first and foremost is, these are tough times, but don't despair. Things will improve. Economy will improve. Jobs will emerge. But when they emerge, are you ready for that? Which means all they have to do at this point of time, when the colleges are online, when education is online, you can't go out of your home, try and see what can added value you can add to yourself. So invest in self first. Second, when things open up, are you good enough for those openings and positions? Which means, have you honed yourself? So more you sweat in peace, less you bleed in war, is the adage goes in army. That's why training at NDA and IMA and AFA and Indian Naval Academy, our cadets are some of the best because the training is so best. So more you train. So this is a training period. This is not a time when you go out and it's like net practice. How many times in a life you are able to get an opportunity to play for the country or the matches? But then every single day you have an opportunity to train yourself.
Yes.
So I think for any student, whoever is doing anything, so get into more skills. I think this is what you guys are also trying. Get more skills, add more skills to yourself, add more, broaden your portfolio of what you have to offer beyond just your degree, because degrees are becoming hygiene. Everybody has a BA, BCom, BSc, MBA, BTech. Degrees don't matter anymore. They are hygiene. Everybody has it. So what? Big deal. What do you bring to the table? What skill do you have that somebody would hire you? Do you have great skills in writing? People might hire you as a content writer or maybe whatever. You have great skills in singing. You have great skills in theater. You have great skills in coding. You have great skills in business, financial modeling. You have great skills in advanced mathematics. What is your skill? I think people today, my skill today is that I'm a startup guy. People don't hire me today for my teaching skills or my writing skills or whatever. I think I'm okay there. But people do hire me because of my skill of creating academic institutions from scratch. So in the last 15, 17 years, this is what I've done the most, right? So you become good at it. So people would hire you for what you are good at. So Malcolm Gladwell tells you that it requires 10,000 hours of practice to become good at one thing. So this is your practice time. Become so good that people would love to hire you. It could be a stand-up. It could be anchoring a show. It could be anything. It could be editing. My son makes small films and he works very hard into his skills into DaVinci Resolve and a few other things, and his gaming skills in C# and Unity. So today, nobody was going to take his films or probably take his games, but the more he spends time doing it, better he becomes into that. So I think for youth is all about being more rational, less cynical, stay positive, because India has seen worst. The world has seen worst. We are the generation we are living. This is a temporary setback. Thankfully, we are not living in 1918 or 1930s where the world wars were fought, or when India was colonized. I think as a youth, we are very lucky to be born in 21st century in these times, these Gen Zs and the millennials. Only thing is you've got everything at your platter. You got all the opportunities. You got a mobile phone. You got unlimited internet connection. Don't waste it only on playing games. Create games if you're interested in gaming. Don't waste your time in OTT platforms. Think about writing for OTT platforms. Think about creating or working in OTT platforms. So I think the whole idea is to invest in self and add enough skills, whatever is your interest area or passion is, and work towards it and see what happens, because it's a matter of time. Then things will open up and things will become better for everybody.
Okay, thank you, sir. And thank you so much for joining us again and giving this interview and, sharing your knowledge with us. And really, thank you for this.
Pleasure is all mine, and all the best for your viewers, audience, and for your own team at Skills Rediscovery to do interesting things with the youth. And my best wishes. And stay safe, everybody. Mask up. And if you are able to crack the COVID code, get vaccinated now that it's open for 18+. Thank you.
Thank you.